This
And
conference will now be recorded.
so, this is a very interesting space what we are working on right now. So primarily what we are going to be talking of today is a voice biometric. What is the technology behind it? How we are, getting involved with the voice biometric, and what's the use cases and what are the advantages to it, right? And some bit of the challenges what we face as far as the security is concerned. So we'll be discussing those as well as part of the discussion. And as my colleague just brought out that we are from Vara, and we are as a cybersecurity solution provider, bringing in all the cutting edge technologies into the country. And we tied up recently with a company called STC. And this is a very big company based on Russia, and they're into the voice technology only for last couple of years, right? And they have lead programmers and developers and into the R&D, working on the speech technology and the voice biometric. So this is the kind of technology which we are trying to bring in. And as you're all aware that the voice is the most common thing which is there with us today, right? And the other part of the biometrics which we know very commonly is a fingerprint, which is all there, and we are very commonly using it. Then is iris, then is the palm geometry, the facial recognition picking up quite a bit, and the voice. So we are working on the facial and the voice biometric part of it, and this is the next gen in the biometrics space itself. So when we come on to the biometric, so the biometric, it performs an analysis of physical signs or the behavioral traits, right, which are typical for a subconscious movement during an action. So it can be either a behavioral system, right, based on the dynamic methods of identification, or it's a psychological system based on the statistical methods of identification. So these are the two methods generally we follow for the security and the access control system. And all these 5 varieties of biometrics which I told you are somewhere down the chain, all associated with it. And some of the disadvantages of the existing security systems, primarily we talk of 2 things. That's one is what you know and what we have, or what you have. What you know is the OTP, your PIN, your ID, your date of birth, your name, your address, right? Your telephone number, your transactional information, right? This is what you know. And it's easy to forget at times. And the data can be accessed by anyone. Okay, it's a social engineering today you're finding is quite active, and people through social engineering and doing a spear phishing attack tend to take a lot of data. You lose these kind of data. Secondly, what you have, okay, that is where it can be stolen. You have the tokens, you have the passports, you have the cards, you have the RFID readers. Okay, so there's a kind of a equilibrium which we need to have between the comfort and the security. And how do we have that balance between the comfort and the security? And that is where the bigger challenge is. Okay, and this is what we are trying to address with the kind of technology we are trying to bring in. Okay, so coming on to what's the voice today, and voice is like 60% of the people, they believe that the voice assistant what we have adds to convenience to their life, and that's what they're doing. And that's why you find so many the Alexas which are coming up, and Google devices which are coming up. And more than 30% of your Google searches on the mobile are the voice driven, right? And 72% of people who own this smart speaker say that the devices are part of their daily life. And that's what it is. You ask so many questions to the devices what we have. Okay, and what we are primarily seeing is there are more than 100 million of Alexa devices which are being sold till January, sorry, till 2019, right? So they are forming the part of our life. They are forming the part of the way we are working, right? Now, why voice? You have to understand that why voice and why speech, and what is the difference between them, and And we all know that voice is a natural and intuitive way which we try to communicate with, right? And the moment we grow up, we are all talking. And it's unique, and it's a universal password which is always there, right? Practically, when I told that what you have and what you are, right? And here you don't have to remember the passwords. Your voice serves as a key, and the strength of your voice is that voice is secured, right? And the kind of speakers which are coming up with a very high noise cancellation, can do the recognition with AI technology and do deep neural networks. Okay, and they provide a secure, personalized digital service, right? And so many voice assistants with us today: Cortana, Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, Yandex. So here I would like to bring in the difference between the voice and the speech. So you have to understand that the speech, when we talk, is a command, and voice is what we are talking, and it comprises a lot of other things when we are doing it. Okay, and that's where we are trying to make use of the voice, and it is unique to each person, just like your fingerprint and iris, right? And what you do is it takes control of your individual respirations, your soft tissue cavities, specific mouth and jaw movements that produce voice pattern with distinctive pitch, dynamics, intensity, and forming individual voice print, right? So it's not just that it's so easy to be copied by anyone, or there can be a synthetic voice to it. And there are two kinds of voice authentication, what we try to follow. One is the text independent, right? That means it's being performed by analyzing any text which is there. And some bit is the text dependent. That means you have a fixed or a randomized passphrase which you need to speak, and that's what you will be identified by, right? So coming on to the technology behind it, what we do it, how we do it, is that primarily the text independent, the one which I told you, and the language independent are the verification methods which are there. So when you have the text dependent verification, you can have a static passphrase, or you can have a dynamic passphrase. So both of things are available to you. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It has an anti-spoofing detection. You have the noise cancellations. I told you it's pretty good, and you have identification of a particular person who's there, right? And how do you identify? It's the voice is not just being identified by the way you speak. It accounts for almost 70 plus to 100 identifiers which are there in a particular human being, which are identified, such as your accent, your pronunciations, your vocal tract, the roll of tongue, your nasal cavity, which are used to identify a customer or a person. So, there are a whole lot of things which we account for while we are doing the voice biometrics. And going a deeper part of it, what practically happens while you are doing the voice biometrics, it does is when you get a voice input, it extracts the characteristics that are specific to a speaker and builds a statistical model. And this is called a voice print or a voice signature. So speech signatures, speech print, or a voice print, this is the most important, which gets created for a particular human being or a particular person, right? And then you verify this new enrolled voice, right, into your database, and you measure it by obtaining the patterns. Okay, and you also, what you do is you input the characteristics that relate to the way the air flows from the lungs to mouth when a person is talking, and more precisely how this airflow is affected by the shape of your vocal tract. Okay, so I'm trying to tell you why the basics of it, because there are lots of questions whether it's a synthetic voice or whether it's a recorded voice. How do you really identify? Okay, so the spoofing part of it. So these are things which we practically do to ascertain a particular human being or a particular user, right? And the voice biometric system, what we create, closely relates to the physical characteristics of the track which are there, the speaker's vocal track. And that's how we are primarily, getting onto the voice technology, and where all this can be used. So it's got lots of usage now. One, which we're finding is your financial services, the banks, where this is very much required to authenticate any user coming onto for the banking service. And then is the call centers, your government services like your IDs or your pensions or other stuff which is there. Then you can use it for identity as a service, right? Then in the healthcare, for the telemedicine, and also for your online education. So there are lots of usage which are there for the voice biometric, where all it can be applied. Some of the advantages what your voice biometrics give: it's a low cost of implementation because you don't require any hardware, and just a simple microphone or cell phone is just needed. It ease of use increases the rate of adoption, right? And it's so natural to us. Speaking is so natural to us that identifying people by their voice is also natural to us, because most of us, when anybody talks, we really identify it. And now here, what we are trying to put, algorithm which is really identifying it. And you can be authenticated remotely. Practically, you don't need to be physically present for the authentication. So if I need to onboard you as a user, I need to make you talk the text independent and text dependent methodologies of what we do, and thereafter we are able to enroll you as a user, right? And the storage is one part you will be thinking. The storage of any voice sample is very small. It's not really very large. In case of the text independent, we have just 5 kilobytes, and for the text dependent, around 700 kilobytes of the data space what we occupy, right? And that's where we are able to use this particular thing. Then you have the hassle-free authentication. You are able to prevent frauds and impersonation, right? Why you are able to prevent the fraud? Because you may be saying that again, synthetic voice, but still, since you are having more than 70 parameters of an individual voice, right, it's very difficult to do the impersonation part of it and do frauds. And it's easy to do integration without any need of a specialized hardware. So if I need to bring in this particular application on your in your organization, I really have a very simple way of operating, and I can implement it very simply or easily, right? And when we talk of the customer satisfaction here, while we are talking, because everybody, every one of us today are being like, we get faced by a lot of questions when any call which we make to the call center, and we are hassled and haggard because of the questions what they put across. So by the voice biometric, you can increase the customer satisfaction, the customer expectation, right? Because you're reducing the verification time for the complete thing, and I'll show you how it really works. And it gives you a faster return of your investment. Unlike other authentication channels, Voice Biometric doesn't require the hardware intervention, and it guarantees your integrity and authenticity of the stored data. Now, coming on some of the comparisons as to why voice and why it's better or it's equally to the other biometric system. And when we compare it with the accuracy, security, cost, hardware repair cost, and the physical presence which is required, and we compared it with all the 4 parameters of voice biometrics, facial, fingerprint, and iris. The accuracy wise, over a period of time, this has increased. Earlier, it's no denial that the accuracy was lower, but over a period of time, we have come up with a very high accuracy of the voice biometric. Okay, and the accuracy has gone up to almost 94-95% of the voice recognition, right? When we talk of the security wise, it's as comparable to any of the other security or biometric systems what we have. Okay, and cost wise, it's lower, right? Because you don't require any additional hardware to onboard any system, right, or a user, and the physical presence is not required. And this is one thing which is so different from all other. And practically, while we are talking of the pandemic and we are all being working from home, to onboard any new user, right, this will play a major role. So if you have a voice biometric system with you, you can really onboard the people onto your business. So it can be business as usual. So you really don't have to send a person or a representative to anyone, or call the user to your institute or your bank or someplace where you need to onboard it. So that it gives a very simplistic manner. Now, the other part which is so important is that when we talk of the voice, we also talk of the face, because we recommend that it's a two-factor authentication, which makes really a best combination. And if you have a face and a voice recognition, there's a overlapping biometric solutions which are there, and you can really authenticate the user, and you can eliminate each other's shortcoming of the face and the voice, right? And similarly, you practically don't require in the face recognition also, you don't require sensors, right? And in voice also, you really don't require sensors for doing the data analysis and all. So, and the contact with the sensors is not there in both the cases. So this gives you a big advantage to you. And some of the business benefits I already brought out. It's practically going to increase your customer relationship, customer loyalty, right? And because the time which you take to just identify your customer is really going to come down. Okay, and in this case, what you can do is, you don't, like I told you, there's no additional hardware which is there. So practically, you can do a multi-channel verification, whether it's your mobile, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. You can use anything, or a tablet, to do this voice verification. And how accurate is this? So when we run our machine learning algorithms on it, and we also have the deep neural networks which we do, we were able to gain accuracy of 94%, right? And this is taking into account all the spoofing, chances of spoofing which are there, right? So we are able to identify people. And since we are in a business for a long time, I think that's why we are able to overcome a lot of challenges altogether. Okay. Now, you can use the voice and the face biometric when you're using online. So in the online solution, you can do the authentication, and you can have access to your account, your email, your files, just on your voice, based on your voice. And also you can use a facial recognition, right? And it's just a single interface which utilizes the hardware readily available everywhere on the PCs, your mobiles, your tablets, right? So based on your the voice print, we're able to identify the user, right? And it gives you plenty of advantages, right? And it gives you accuracy. That's one which is one of the key feature in this particular software, is that the false acceptance is under 0.1%, and the false rejection is 1%, right? So this is the kind of accuracy we have been able to achieve. And while on the online authentication, it just takes 2 to 3 seconds to complete the authentication part of it, right? And when we have to enroll, it's a very simple enrollment for any user. And when we talk of the voice biometrics in a contact center or the call center, like I brought out, that we are looking in for the speed, we are looking in for the minimum time when we are going to be verified before we get our services. So the voice verification, it's very convenient way, and it gives you a very high safety, right? when we are in the call center trying to access our credit card details or our other details, pertaining to the services which that organization is giving. And on this view file, I've tried to bring out that when we are working on a traditional way, what you're trying to do is that you're having so many questions which come up as part of your, details which are being asked by the call center. Maybe, starting from hello to your name to ID to date of birth to your secret word, right? And it takes almost 90 seconds before you complete the process. Whereas when you're using the voice biometric, right, after you are just given your name and the date of birth, we're able to identify, okay, and that's the time when you pick it on and do the authentication part of it, and you're able to do the voice authentication, right? And that's the voice biometric algorithm which starts playing. And one of the use case I just want to bring out, when it was being implemented in one of the large banks, they had 90 seconds of time when they took for authenticating and the agent verification, right? The bank was able to save almost $5 million after they had put this system, and the customer satisfaction score had come down by 66%, right? So, and they were able to authenticate any user within 30 seconds. So that's the kind of advantage they gain after using this particular software. And what advantages giving it? It's very convenient, it's very secure, it's doing your analysis in a very real time. And the technologies which we are using at the call centers is both the text independent and the text dependent. That's a voice phrase passphrase verification, right? And it's a very simple procedure. The customer practically doesn't come to know that he's being verified, and while speaking itself, he's being able to be verified that he's a genuine user or not. So it practically gives you a very high level of security. It's the very highly versatile, right? And it's very flexible, and it can be both integrated on the incoming and outgoing call. And the efficiency wise, it's pretty high, and it's very very efficient when it takes very few seconds to complete the process. Right. So while the user is just talking, we are able to verify him through our voice agents which are there. And this is where we have the process, when the customer interacts with the call center. I forgot the PIN card, and then please tell me your number. He tries to tell the number, and while he's telling the number also, so he's being verified by the key agent. And I'll just show you how it's been doing it. And he's been given his PIN codes within few seconds because he's been authenticated. And this is how you're increasing the customer satisfaction. And how you're doing it? You're analyzing almost 70 plus biometric characteristics of voice. Okay, that's the key to it, that the precision or the accuracy is so high. And it's 100% language independent. So we are not bound by any language. So the voice is independent of that, and we are able to go multilingual for any organization, right? And this is where I'm trying to bring out that the agents which are there at the back end. So you have the client where he just tells the ID number and the name, and the call center where he's got an agent which checks up with the voice key agent and verifies with the database. If it's a text independent, then I told you it's just a 5 kilobytes of data, and dependent is around 700 kilobytes of data. So it verifies that and tries to give an accuracy of 95%. And then the moment it's okay, he's being authenticated as the genuine user. This is a video which I am trying to show, where the user, when he comes and how he spends the time at the call center, and the way he gets irritated at times. Just have a look at it. So sorry for the audio, I'm not able to play the audio for you. So there are two options which we are trying to explore. This is an old school thought where it starts with the greetings which are there, and thereafter you identify the name, right? Once you tell the name, the date of birth, your card number, please. Right now, you again, stuck with it. What's my card number? Thinking of it, and thinking that whether if I tell the card number, whether it's going to, go away or somebody is going to steal that card number. And then there's your secret password. Again, you really think, am I in a trap or am I, at the right place? So once you've done that, now you're being asked, what's your problem? So you spent around 1 minute and 30 seconds there. And when you use a voice print, which is so unique, right? And it's really impossible for anybody to steal that way, because we have been using that 70 characters, right? Or the parameters, what we're using. And the moment you get into it, the moment he says the name and the date of birth, and we have done the text independent and the text dependent verification, and in 30 seconds we are just able to take it on and say, it is authenticated, the user is proper, and there we are able to take up the problem. So this is the basic advantage of using the voice biometrics vis-a-vis your old pattern of authentication. That's really time saving and giving you a lot of safety and control, your cost of service, right? And very pleasing customer experience. So, like any technology, it's also not away from any threats, any problems which are there. So there are fraud cases which are happening so many times today on the call centers, on your financial institutions. Anybody tries to pretend as a client, you try to pretend as a relative of a client, a fraudster stole client's ID and took a loan on client's name, right? And uncredited employee are calling for a legal entity. So these are kind of things which do happen. So lots of things. I have listed only a couple of them, but there are a lot of them. And the major part is that is a spoofing attack, which is of interest to us. And it said that people try to spoof the voice biometrics, and it's the method where the imposter attempts to manipulate the biometric system, okay, by masquerading as another person. So that's what they try to do, and how we are trying to overcome with our solution is, these are the methods. You may try to have a replay attack. You may record a message and try to replay. You may cut and paste a message. You may become a professional actor to talk in the same language which is there. You may do nasalization tempering, which is there. You do the synthetic speech, that's a text-to-speech synthesis, which is there. And then you have the voice conversation. So these are some of the methods which people try to fool the voice biometric. And what we are trying at the STC solution, what we're providing is, if a person calls the call center as a fraudster, and he says that, say for example, I want to leave an application for a credit. So the moment he's talking, right? So the call center user asks for the basic details, and the moment he says his details, he's been identified as a fraud, and he is being denied giving any data. And why this is happening? This is based on the accent, the pronunciation, the speech rate, tone, and the pitch, and also the 70 parameters which we discussed earlier, right? And what happens when fraudster calls a call center? You're able to automatically detect fraudulent voices in incoming calls made in the call center, and you are able to notify the operator and the security services to take action. So you're able to identify these kind of cases very urgently, rather than waiting that there's a fraud case which happened and then you are trying to identify. So which is a present case, right? You also create a list of own fraudsters list which is there. So anytime if there is a repeat fraudster who comes in, there's a red flag which comes up, right? And you primarily compare voices of callers with voice of fraud database, online and offline both. So you're able to do that kind of comparison on the fly while any call is happening. So it gives you very high security. It also gives you the versatility, the flexibility, and the efficiency, right, to thwart any fraudster calling up your organization or your bank. Okay. And this is how the agent which works. So you have the voice agent which compares the voice with the original database, and the moment it comes less than 34%, say, we are able to tell that the fraudster call which has happened, and the moment there's a red flag which comes up, the neural network comes into action, the machine learning comes into action, and our advanced recognition engine can also detect the highest and the lowest frequency, which are being spoken by that individual. Based on those kind of inputs, you're able to reject that person. Okay, so that's how you tell a person is a valid customer or not. And this particular technology is not new to us, and we have been in this space for quite some years now. Like I told you, there are almost 150 R&D engineers who are working on this voice biometrics itself, and some of the big projects what we have implemented in the Bank in Russia, which has been done by us, and it was almost 5,000 call center operators who were working on it, and which was very useful. And then in the Mexico, where we have implemented the national voice search system, and it was the world's first national system of biometric accounting, right? And it was pan nation. So this is the kind of project which we have implemented world over. These are some of the major ones. The number of other projects also which are there. I'm just listing out those. And when we come up to the approval of the technology, any voice biometric technology has to pass through a benchmark. So we have been able to achieve those benchmarks of the ASP spoof challenge 2009, the NIST SRE 2018, the voices 2019. So these all testings and the independent testings which are there, the global approvals which are there with our technology, which is proven now, and it's really a worth technology to be rolled out in any financial institution, any government organizations to do the voice biometric. And to tell you finally, the future of biometrics is in voice and the face. So we discussed about voice today. Subsequently, we'll also be talking about the face technology. So it's very accurate, and it's a convenient identification based on your physical signs, right? And you are able to give a very high customer experience, right? Today in the call centers, we are talking to the human beings. Tomorrow, we also will have the chatbots, right? So those things also are getting incorporated. And we are also using the NLP, the machine learning, and the technologies to fine tune our solution so that the accuracy is high to identify any fraudster or any scam which comes up, and we are able to avoid it. So this is the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, you can please ask, and we'll try to answer your queries.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I think that was a fairly comprehensive understanding you gave us of this technology, and also excellent references and use cases that were discussed. Meanwhile, I would leave the floor open to anyone who has
One
questions.
question. I'll just say there's one question from Puneet. Puneet, your question is that as we see voice recognition is so good, why this has not been used earlier? Yes, this technology is good. Unfortunately, this technology had taken a backseat because of the inaccuracy, and there were lots of challenges of spoofing, which I brought it out. And those technology, but with the advent of the AI, using of the machine learning, the NLPs, what are there, the accuracy factor has gone up pretty high. And now most of the banks, in fact, are using this technology. They're trying to imbibe this technology as the methodology of the user identification. So, Pankaj Gupta, we have implemented this STC and Vara. So, we are in partnership with STC. So, they had front-ended some of the projects there internationally. So, they have done it. We have come just now. It's almost 6 months in partnership with them. So, whatever projects we are trying to do in India, that will be in our name. And other question is, yes, STC is from Russia. So, they are based in Pretoria with their, the offices in Moscow and other places. And they're also present in US. Any other question if you like to take, please?
So there is a question from Shalini Shukla. Yeah, please
Yes,
go
please.
ahead.
Yes, you can ask your question, please.
So in the chat, sir, there is a question from Shalini Shukla.
So it's like this. Privacy issues. It's the same as what goes for your, privacy laws, which we are giving it for facial recognition or your, biometrics iris or your fingerprint. So the same laws also are getting used here. So consent of the user, yes, of course, it is required. Then only you need to go ahead with it. So without that, nothing is possible. So even for your fingerprint, we need to give a consent. So that's what we do always. And Arup, there was your question. The voice agent is an intermediary between BPO and or is the recognition included in the call center application? No, it's the voice agent is back processing. There's a software which we create, and this gets connected to the BPO rep, right? So moment he is talking, so the similar kind of data is being accessed by the voice agent, along with. So that's how you're able to identify the thing. Arup, I hope I have answered your question. Anything? So you can get it included as part of your, call center application. That's not a problem. We can include it into that. So the onboarding of this solution to your application is not a problem.
Okay, there's one question from Puneet. So he wants to have some idea on the commercial aspects. So maybe if there's some budgetary pricing.
I think I will take that offline because this is more from the technology aspect. I think Puneet, I'll request we can talk offline and we'll discuss on it. Any other questions, please? So we have both the options. If you're there's extra data, there's a question from that. Where is the voice data stored? Either local server or remote else. So we have both the options. Either we have a SaaS option where you can store on our data center and on our servers, and we give you the services as part of your BPO services, right? Or you can have the complete agent which is being installed in your server, in your data center, right, on a server, and we can use it in that manner. So that's on-prem and SaaS model, both are available. Yes, you need to capture one-time master data. That's what I was trying to say, that you have to onboard all your users once. Like if I'm a user and you're one of the banks, right? You need to onboard me once, and that data resides with you. Yeah. Thank you, Puneet. Any other questions? I will love to take those as well. If none, so thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was really pleasure to be with you. And Arun, there's a question for storing voice data. Then you need to have a storage also. Yes, of course, you need to have a storage if you're taking on-prem solution. And the bigger customers definitely, they do that. Yes, in India, STC is doing all the projects through Vara. So we have brought in two technologies. One is the voice technology, which I spoke of. Next session, I'll speak to you on the facial recognition, what we have done, and there are a number of projects we have, as the STC has implemented, on the facial recognition world over. So those I'll be talking in my next series of talk. So any other question, please? So thank you everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and it's really pleasure to have you with us today, and especially taking out your time out of your busy schedule. And we wish you, be cyber safe and stay safe during coronavirus. And we will love to bring in better technologies for you and showcase that technology in the Indian market. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.